Nobody at the hotel understood Chinese. The millionaire Chinese woman was fuming until the maid's daughter spoke in perfect Chinese. The Grand Majestic Hotel's gilded halls had seen a century of quiet wealth, but they were not prepared for Madame Lin, a furious Chinese millionaire whose frustration was met with blank stares. Invisible in the chaos was Sarah, a housekeeper, and her 10-year-old daughter Lily, a little blonde girl with a secret fluency in Mandarin. When Lily bravely translated the woman's desperate words, it was more than an act of kindness. It was the key to a 70-year-old mystery of stolen land and a buried legacy. The powerful men who ran the hotel would soon discover their foundation of lies was about to crumble, all because they underestimated the voice of a child and the power of a truth that refused to stay silent. A little girl held a secret that could bring a powerful hotel to its knees. She watched the wealthy woman shout in a language no one understood, but 10-year-old Lily understood every single word. The Grand Majestic Hotel was more than a building. It was a promise of old-world New York splendor. Sunlight streamed through tall arched windows, glinting off the polished marble floors. A grand chandelier, a galaxy of crystal, hung from the frescoed ceiling. The air smelled of money, fresh lilies, and lemon polish. Through the enormous brass revolving doors spun a constant flow of people. They were men in tailored suits with important places to be. They were women in designer dresses, their jewelry sparkling with casual fire. Each guest was treated with the same flawless, practiced courtesy by the staff in their crisp navy blue uniforms. Behind the front desk, the atmosphere was less calm. Anna, a 20-year-old junior associate with a perfectly pleasant smile, looked flustered. She was speaking to George, 40 years old, the head concierge. George had a face that seemed permanently etched with polite concern. "I've never seen a request list like this," Anna whispered, tapping her computer screen. She wants all the white roses removed from the floor. Not just her suite, the entire floor. She says the scent is inauspicious. George adjusted his tie. "Tomlinson is already having the florist replace them with orchids. What else? The thermostat must be set to precisely 22.7 degrees C. Not 22.5, not 23, 22.7. And she has demanded that all housekeeping services be performed by a single designated maid. No one else is to enter her suite." Anna shook her head. "Who is this woman?" "Her name is Madame Lan," George said, his voice low. "And from what Mr. Davenport has said, she is one of the most important guests we will host this year. Everything must be perfect." At that moment, a sleek black car, silent as a shadow, pulled up to the curb. The doorman, a man built like a monument, sprang to action. He opened the rear door with a flourish. From inside emerged a woman. She appeared to be in her late 60s with streaks of silver in her perfectly styled black hair. She wore a simple but exquisitely cut silk dress in a shade of deep jade. Her face was a mask of stoic calm, hidden behind large dark sunglasses. She did not smile. She simply stood for a moment, observing the grand entrance, as if judging its worth. Her luggage was a strange mix. 2 modern high-end suitcases were placed on the curb, but beside them the driver carefully unloaded a large antique camphorwood trunk. It was bound with brass fittings and looked as though it had crossed oceans a century ago. "Welcome to the Grand Majestic, ma'am," the doorman said, his voice warm and professional. The woman gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. She then turned to the driver and spoke. The words were sharp, fluid, and completely foreign to the doorman's ears. It was Mandarin Chinese. He smiled blankly, hoping it was a pleasantry. The woman's expression did not change. She gestured to the antique trunk, then toward the hotel lobby, speaking again with an air of firm expectation. Inside, George saw her approach. "She's here," he muttered to Anna. "And she's early. Remember, Anna, smile and be accommodating." "No matter what," Anna plastered on her professional smile as the woman arrived at the front desk. "Good afternoon, madam. Welcome to the Grand Majestic. May I have your name, please?" The woman removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were dark, intelligent, and held a deep weariness. She spoke again in Mandarin. Her tone was not harsh, but it was clear she expected to be understood. Anna's smile faltered. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I don't understand. Do you speak any English?" Madame Lin's brow furrowed in annoyance. This was a world-class hotel in New York City. How could they not have someone who understood a language spoken by over 1 billion people? She reached into her expensive leather handbag and produced a small leather-bound notebook. She flipped it open to a page where a name was written in beautiful flowing English script. Mrs. Lin Xiao. She pointed to the name. Ah, yes, Madam Lin, Anna said, her voice filled with relief. She began typing quickly into her computer. We have been expecting you. I have your reservation right here. And oh, Anna's face fell. The smile vanished, replaced by a look of quiet panic. Oh dear, it seems there has been a mistake. We have you scheduled to arrive tomorrow, not today. Madam Lin tilted her head. She did not understand the words, but she understood the sudden shift in atmosphere. She understood the look of incompetence. She pointed to her watch, then tapped the counter firmly. She spoke again in Mandarin, her voice gaining a sharp, insistent edge. Anna started speaking slowly and loudly, as if raising her voice would magically create understanding. Your room is for tomorrow, not today. The response was a flash of cold fury in Madam Lin's eyes. She shook her head, pulled out her phone and found her confirmation email. She held it up for Anna to see. The date was clearly visible, August 27th, today. The rest of the email was in Chinese characters, a wall of text Anna couldn't penetrate. I see, Anna stammered, her face turning red. There has been a terrible mix-up. My sincerest apologies, Madam Lin. Please have a seat in our lounge. We will sort this out immediately. We will have a suite ready for you within the hour. Madam Lin did not move. She remained standing at the desk, a pillar of silent, furious dignity. Her expensive luggage and ancient trunk sat beside her, drawing curious glances from other guests. She looked utterly alone, a proud, isolated island in a sea of confused hospitality. Away from the polished glamour of the lobby, the hotel's arteries were plain and functional. Here, the floors were linoleum, and the walls were painted a boring beige. Sarah, a 30-year-old housekeeper, with tired but kind eyes, was finishing her lunch in the small, crowded break room. Her uniform was neat, but she wore the exhaustion of a long shift, like a second skin. Sitting across from her, scribbling in a drawing pad, was her daughter, Lily, 10 years old. Lily was a small girl with straight honey-blonde hair and bright, curious blue eyes. She was supposed to be at a friend's house, but a last-minute cancellation had forced Sarah to bring her to work for the last hour of her shift. Lily didn't mind. She found the secret life of the hotel fascinating. She knew the names of all the maids, the quickest routes through the service corridors, and that Mr. Henderson in the kitchen always saved her a cookie. The break room door swung open and two other maids bustled in, their voices buzzing with the day's gossip. Did you see her? The first one, Maria said. The Chinese lady in the lobby. She looks like royalty, but she's been standing there for an hour. Apparently, they messed up her booking. I heard she's furious, added the second. A woman named Chloe keeps talking in Chinese, and nobody knows what she's saying. Davenport is about to have a meltdown. Sarah sighed, packing up her lunchbox. Poor woman. It's hard enough to travel so far without having problems when you arrive. Lily looked up from her drawing. Why doesn't someone just talk to her in Chinese? She asked with the simple logic of a child. Chloe laughed. Honey, we're maids in New York, not translators at the UN. None of us speaks Chinese. I do, Lily said, so quietly that only her mother heard. Sarah looked at her daughter. It was true. Lily's father, who had passed away 2 years ago, had been a diplomat. They had lived in Beijing for 4 years, from the time Lily was 3 until she was 7. Lily had soaked up the language like a sponge, speaking it with a fluency that still surprised Sarah. After he died, they had moved back to the States, and this job at the hotel was the only thing keeping them afloat. Lily kept up her Mandarin by watching Chinese cartoons online. That's nice, sweetie, Sarah said, stroking her daughter's hair. She didn't want to get involved. Her job was to be invisible, to clean rooms and follow orders. Getting involved in a guest's problem, especially a VIP's problem, was far above her pay grade. Come on, Lily, Sarah said, standing up. My shift is over. Let's go home. She took Lily's hand and led her out of the break room. They walked down the service corridor toward the staff exit, but to get there, they had to pass a small alcove that overlooked the main lobby. Lily paused, looking down through the decorative screen. She could see Madame Lin perfectly. The woman was no longer standing. She was seated in a large armchair, but she didn't look comfortable. Her back was ramrod straight, Her hands were clenched in her lap. Her face, no longer hidden by sunglasses, was etched with a profound and lonely frustration. As Lily watched, a concierge approached Madame Lin with a tray offering a glass of water. He smiled a wide, empty smile and gestured with the glass. Madame Lin shook her head and spoke, her voice carrying up to the alcove. Her words were rapid and laced with an emotion that Lily recognized instantly. It wasn't just anger. It was desperation. The concierge didn't understand. He just kept smiling and nodding, then backed away as if she were a difficult piece of art. "Mom," Lily whispered, her grip tightening on Sarah's hand. "She's not asking for a drink. She's asking for a telephone. She says she needs to call her son, but her mobile phone isn't working." Sarah looked from Madame Lin's distressed face to her daughter's earnest one. "Lily, it's not our place." "But nobody is helping her," Lily insisted. "They think she's just being difficult. But she's scared. She thinks she's lost." A conflict played out on Sarah's face. Years of training, of being a good employee, told her to walk away. Her job was precarious. She couldn't afford to make waves. But the mother in her, the person in her, saw a woman in distress. And she saw the deep, unwavering empathy in her own child's eyes. Something inside her made a decision. It was a small, quiet, but significant rebellion. "All right," Sarah sighed, her heart starting to beat a little faster. "All right, but you let me do the talking. You just translate and be polite." They walked out of the service corridor and into the grand lobby. It felt like stepping onto a stage. They were a world away from the glamorous guests. Sarah in her simple maid's uniform, Lily in her jeans and t-shirt, clutching her drawing pad. Several staff members gave them questioning looks. They weren't supposed to be here. Sarah took a deep breath and led Lily toward the lonely figure in the armchair. As they got closer, Madame Lin looked up. Her eyes, filled with frustration, settled on the maid and the little blonde girl. She looked through them as if they were just part of the furniture. She was preparing for another useless interaction. Another smiling face that couldn't understand her. Sarah knelt down slightly, so she was at eye level with the seated woman. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said softly. Madame Lin just stared. Sarah looked at her daughter. "Go on, Lily. Tell her what I said. Tell her we're here to help." Lily took a small step forward. She was a little nervous, but the woman's sadness was stronger than her fear. She looked directly into Madame Lin's eyes, bowed her head slightly in a gesture of respect. Her father had taught her, and spoke. Her Mandarin was clear, perfect, and flowed with the natural accent of a child who had learned it in the Hotong of Beijing. "Hello, madam. My mother says we would like to help you." The world seemed to stop. The transformation on Madame Lin's face was immediate and stunning. The hard mask of anger and frustration cracked. Her eyes widened in disbelief. A storm of emotions, shock, confusion, and then a tidal wave of immense relief washed over her features. She leaned forward, her gaze locked on this impossible child. A little American girl with blonde hair, speaking the language of her heart. She reached out, her hand trembling slightly. Not for Sarah, but for Lily. She gently took the girl's small hand in her own. Her voice when she spoke was barely a whisper. It was thick with unshed tears. You speak Chinese?" Lily nodded, a small shy smile touching her lips. "Yes," she replied in English, then switched back to Mandarin. "I lived in Beijing for 4 years." The tears in Madame Lin's eyes finally spilled over, tracing paths down her cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. She just held on to Lily's hand, as if it were a lifeline. She looked at Sarah, then back at Lily, and the words began to pour out. It was a flood of explanation, frustration, and worry, all in rapid-fire Mandarin. Lily listened intently, her small face serious, as she concentrated on the torrent of words. The few staff members nearby watched in utter bewilderment. The difficult Chinese guest was now holding hands with the maid's daughter, crying and talking a mile a minute. After a few moments, Madame Lin paused, taking a shaky breath. Lily turned to her mother. "She says, thank heavens." Lily translated, her voice clear and steady. "She has been trying to tell everyone that her reservation was changed last week by her son. He sent an email, but maybe it went to the wrong person. She says her phone won't connect to the American network, and she needs to call her son to tell him she's safe." She was very worried. Sarah looked at Madame Lin, and for the first time, she didn't see a demanding VI. She saw a grandmother, a mother, lost and alone in a foreign country, frightened and frustrated. Her heart went out to her. Of course, Sarah said, her voice full of warmth. Please tell her she can use my phone. When Lily translated this, Nadine Lin's face crumpled with gratitude. She took Sarah's cheap mobile phone and dialed a number from memory. The call connected. She began speaking in Mandarin, her voice now calm and reassuring. While she was on the phone, Mr. Davenport, the hotel manager, finally appeared. He was a tall, thin man whose expensive suit couldn't hide his anxious energy. He strode across the lobby, his face a thundercloud. Sarah, what is the meaning of this? He demanded, his voice a sharp hiss. Why are you and your child bothering our guest? You know the rule. Staff are not to interact with guests in the lobby. Before Sarah could stammer an apology, Nadine Lin ended her call. She handed the phone back to Sarah with a grateful smile. Then she stood up and faced Mr. Davenport. She spoke in Mandarin, her voice no longer desperate, but filled with a cold, regal authority. She gestured towards Sarah and Lily, then looked at Mr. Davenport with utter contempt. Lily translated without missing a beat. She says, "This woman and her child have shown me more courtesy and competence in 5 minutes than your entire staff has shown in over an hour. They are the only reason I have not yet walked out of your hotel." Mr. Davenport stared, his mouth opening and closing silently. He looked from the formidable Nadine Lin to the little blonde girl who had just delivered the verbal slap. His mind struggled to process the scene. The housekeeper, who was supposed to be invisible, was now at the center of the biggest guest service crisis of the day. Nadine Lin spoke again, a short, sharp command. Lily looked at Mr. Davenport. She says, she will only speak through me from now on, and she would like to be shown to her suite. Immediately, the Magnolia Suite was one of the finest in the hotel. It had a spacious living area, a bedroom with a king-sized bed, and a marble bathroom the size of Sarah's entire apartment. Mr. Davenport, now sweating profusely, had personally escorted them up. He had upgraded Nadine Lin to the best available room, desperate to make amends. Sarah and Lily stood awkwardly near the door. Their job was done, but Nadine Lin had insisted they come with her. Nadine Lin surveyed the suite, her expert eye missing nothing. She ran a finger over a dusty lampshade, her expression unreadable. She then turned her attention to her luggage, especially the antique camphor-wood trunk. She spoke in Mandarin to Lily. Lily nodded and turned to her mother. "She wants to thank you, Mom. She says she was treated like she was invisible or stupid. You were the first person to see. She just needed help." Sarah felt a blush rise to her cheeks. "It was nothing. I'm glad we could help." Nadine Lin said something else, her gaze soft as she looked at Lily. "She says, I have a gift." Lily translated. She says, "A bridge between two worlds is a rare and powerful thing." The older woman then opened her handbag and took out a thick envelope. She tried to press it into Sarah's hands. "No, please. I can't accept that," Sarah said, holding up her hands. "It was against hotel policy. It could get her fired." Lily translated, and Nadine Lin's expression became stern. She spoke firmly. "She insists." Lily said, "It is not a tip. It is a gift of gratitude. To refuse a gift given from the heart is an insult." Faced with this cultural dilemma, Sarah reluctantly took the envelope. It felt heavy. Just then, Mr. Davenport knocked and entered the suite. He was followed by two bellhops, who began arranging the luggage. "Is everything to your satisfaction, Nadine Lin?" he asked, his voice oozing anxious charm. He looked at Lily, expecting a translation. Nadine Lin ignored him completely. She walked over to her antique trunk and ran a hand over its carved lid. She seemed lost in thought. Then she spoke to Lily, her voice much softer now, almost wistful. Lily listened, then turned to Mr. Davenport. "Nadine Lin would like my mother to be the only person who services this suite during her stay. She also requests that I am allowed to be here to help her communicate. She says she will compensate my mother and me for our time separately from the hotel." Mr. Davenport looked like he had swallowed a lemon. A maid's daughter as a personal interpreter for a VIP. It was unheard of. It broke a dozen hotel protocols. But one look at Nadine Lin's unyielding face told him he had no choice. She was the guest, and she was clearly very, very wealthy. Losing her business would be a disaster. "That is highly irregular," he said through gritted teeth. "But for you, Nadine Lin, we will make an exception." "Sarah,
You are temporarily reassigned, Jackson, he said, looking at Lily as if she were a strange new piece of equipment. You will assist her. We will discuss compensation later. He gave a tight smile and backed out of the room, leaving them alone. Once he was gone, the formal atmosphere in the room lifted. Nadine Lin let out a long sigh, the tension finally leaving her shoulders. She looked tired, but also determined. She gestured for Sarah and Lily to sit on the plush sofa. She sat opposite them and began to unpack the contents of the camphor wood trunk. It wasn't filled with clothes. Instead, it held silk-wrapped parcels, old leather-bound books, and yellowed documents. She unwrapped one of the parcels to reveal a beautiful porcelain vase, painted with delicate blue peonies. This belonged to my grandmother, she said in Mandarin, her voice thick with memory. Lily translated for her mother. It has been in our family for over 100 years. I could not trust it to a shipping company. It's beautiful, Sarah said sincerely. Everything in this trunk is beautiful, Nadine Lin said, and everything is a clue, a piece of a story that was broken long ago. She looked at Lily, her gaze direct and certain. I did not come to New York for a vacation, little one. I came to find something that was stolen from my family, something that was stolen right here on this very land. She paused, then continued, her voice dropping to a serious whisper. This hotel, the Grand Majestic, was built on a foundation of lies, and I have come to reclaim the truth. Lily translated the powerful words. Sarah's eyes widened. This was no ordinary guest. This was no simple booking mistake. They had stumbled into something far bigger, a story of history and injustice that was hidden deep within the very walls of the hotel, where she cleaned toilets for a living. And somehow, her little girl with the gift of language was now at the very center of it all.
The suite was bathed in the soft glow of table lamps. Outside, the lights of Manhattan twinkled like fallen stars. Sarah had gone home hours ago after promising to return in the morning. Madame Lin had insisted that Lily stay for dinner, which was served in the suite. Now the room felt less like a hotel suite and more like a historian's office. Documents and old photographs were spread carefully across the large coffee table. Madame Lin, whose first name Lily now knew was Jiwaowei, picked up a faded black and white photograph. It showed a young, strikingly beautiful Chinese woman. She stood proudly in front of a building that was not the Grand Majestic, but an older, more ornate brownstone. She was dressed in a stylish 1940s Western dress, but her bearing was entirely her own. This was my grandmother, Lin Meiling, Jiwaowei said, her voice soft. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, listening intently, translating the story in her mind. She came to America in 1936. She was brilliant, fearless. She built a business empire when women, especially Chinese women, were expected to be silent. Jiwaowei pointed to the building in the photograph. She owned that building and the one next to it, and the one next to that. She owned this entire block. She had a dream to build a magnificent hotel here, a place that would be a bridge between East and West. Just as she was, she fell silent for a moment, her finger tracing the outline of her grandmother's face. But a war came, and with the war came suspicion, fear. Her American business partners, men she trusted, saw an opportunity. They used the anti-Asian sentiment of the time to cheat her. They forged papers, threatened her, and told her she would lose everything if she did not sell to them for pennies on the dollar. Lily felt a knot of anger tighten in her stomach. That's not fair, she whispered in English. Jiwaowei heard the English words and seemed to understand the sentiment. She gave a sad smile. No, it was not fair. In the end, she was forced to flee. She returned to Hong Kong with almost nothing. She lost her property, her dream. The men who cheated her built this hotel on her land. They used some of her architectural plans, but they erased her from the story completely, as if she never existed. She looked up from the photograph, her eyes locking with Lily's. For 70 years my family has lived with this story. My mother tried to fight, but the records were gone. The system was against her. Now it is my turn. I am the last of my line. I will not let my grandmother's legacy be forgotten. How will you prove it? Lily asked in Mandarin. The proof is hidden somewhere in this hotel, Jiwaowei said, her voice filled with conviction. My grandmother was clever. Before she fled, she hid something. A collection of documents, deeds and a signed confession from one of the partners who felt guilty. She wrote about it in her journal. She called it her heart box. She gestured to the maps and old blueprints on the table. I have spent years studying her journals, trying to decipher her clue. I believe the heart box is hidden in a secret room, a part of the original building that was not demolished, but sealed away when the new hotel was built around it. Lily looked at the blueprints, her eyes wide with excitement. It was like a treasure hunt, a secret room. Yes, Jiwawe, and finding it is why I am here. It is why I needed a suite in this specific wing of the hotel. It is why I could not wait until tomorrow. She paused, studying the young girl before her. This is a difficult, perhaps dangerous task. Your manager, Mr. Davenport, I do not trust him. His grandfather was one of the men who cheated my grandmother. Lily gasped. Mr. Davenport's grandfather. Yes, the apple does not fall far from the tree. He will not want me to succeed. That is why I must be careful. And it is why I need you, Lily. I need your ears, I need your voice. But I cannot ask a child to put herself in danger. Lily didn't hesitate. I'm not scared, she said bravely. What they did was wrong. We have to make it right. Jiwawe looked at the fierce determination in the little girl's blue eye. For the first time since she had arrived, a genuine warm smile spread across her face. I believe we will, she said. I believe we will. The next day, Sarah arrived for her special assignment. Feeling nervous, her world of cleaning carts and fresh linens had been turned upside down. She found Lily and Madame Lin already bent over the blueprints. Deep, din discussion. The original building plans should be in the hotel archives, Jiwaiwei was saying in Mandarin. If we can compare them to the current layout, we might find a space that is unaccounted for. The archives are in the basement, Sarah offered, having overheard Lily's translation. But it's kept locked. Only senior staff have a key. Jiwaiwei looked at her. Your Mr. Davenport would never grant us permission to look. But the head of maintenance, a man named Sal, he is a kind man, Sarah said, thinking aloud. He has a master key to all the service rooms. He's worked here for 30. He knows every secret of this building. An idea began to form. Later that afternoon, Sarah accidentally bumped into Sal in the service hallway. She carried a small box of homemade cookies. Sal, just the man I was looking for, she said with a friendly smile. Lily baked these and insisted I bring you some. She says, thank you for the donut you gave her last week. Sal, a large man with a gentle face, beamed. She's a sweet kid. Tell her it was my pleasure. As he took a cookie, Sarah sighed dramatically. It's been a strange couple of days. I'm on a special assignment with that new guest, Madame Lin. Ah, the Chinese lady. Heard she was giving everyone a headache. She's actually very nice once you can understand her, Sarah said. She's very interested in the hotel's history. She was asking me about the old building that was here before the Grand Majestic. You've been here the longest. Do you remember any stories about it? Sal's eyes lit up. He loved talking about the hotel's history. Oh, sure. They say when they built this place, they didn't tear down everything. They built right over some of the old foundation. There are all sorts of sealed-off crawl spaces and old storerooms down in the sub-basement, full of junk from the 50s. Most of it fascinating. Fascinating, Sarah said, her heart beating faster. Madame Lin would love to see something like that. She's interested in the original blueprints, even. The blueprints are in the archives, Sal said, shaking his head. Davenport keeps that place locked up tighter than a drum, says it's for insurance purposes. Sarah looked disappointed. Oh, that's a shame. She would have been so thrilled. Sal looked at Sarah's crestfallen face. He looked at the cookie box. He thought of the sweet little girl who had baked for him. He glanced down the empty corridor. Tell you what, he said, lowering his voice. I have to do a systems check in the basement this evening around. The night shift is lazy. Nobody will be around. If your guest happens to be down there, I might just have the wrong key on my ring for a minute or two. Sarah could have hugged him. Sal, thank you. That is so kind. Don't mention it, he grumbled. But he was smiling. And don't tell Davenport. That night, after the hotel had settled into a quiet hum, Sarah, Lily and Jiwaiwei took a service elevator to the basement. It was a different world downstairs. A maze of dimly lit corridors, humming pipes, and the faint smell of bleach. They found Sal, who with a theatrical wink, fumbled with his keys before opening the heavy door to the archives. He stood guard outside while they slipped in. The room was cold and smelled of old paper. Rows of metal shelves were crammed with dusty boxes. Flat filing cabinets lined one wall.